Alaska is the northernmost and largest state in the United States. This place captivates with its beauty and inaccessibility. And of course, scientists here make new, amazing discoveries. In this video, I have compiled for you the most incredible finds discovered in Alaska that will shock you. Enjoy watching. As is known, the national bird of the USA is the bald eagle. This bird can be seen on the national emblem, the presidential standard, and on banknotes. However, in many states, there is no such city where bald eagles roam the streets like pigeons. But there is such a place in Alaska. Unalaska is a small town located in southwest Alaska. This settlement is home to 4,700 people who share the territory with bald eagles. It may seem interesting, but in reality, it is not. It should not be forgotten that eagles are predatory and large birds. They themselves are not happy to live next to people, so sometimes the birds even attack local residents. This most often happens when people approach their nests. Usually these birds nest in trees, but in Unalaska there are not so many of them. Therefore, they have to do this in various structures of the city. Every year, up to 10 people in the city suffer from eagle attacks. Of course, it is not easy to get used to living next to large predatory birds, but the city's residents have no other choice. Since 1940, bald eagles have been under state protection. These birds chose Unalaska as their habitat for a reason. The city is located near a fishing port. Therefore, they attack boats and grab the catch until the fishermen drive them away. The feathered residents of the city like to gather near the garbage dump. There, among the waste, they find their food. Another favorite place for the birds, for unknown reasons, is the post office. It is there that they most often attack people. The residents of Unalaska try to treat the majestic birds with respect, although this is very difficult, as they cause a lot of inconvenience to people. In the early 20th century, many trading vessels made their voyages along set routes, where they often faced dangers. Anything could cause a shipwreck. And along the coast of Alaska, ships frequently encountered icebergs. One such ship was the Swiss Bakimo. After the end of World War I, it was transferred to a Canadian company involved in cargo transportation and trade with Native Americans in North America. The ship had impressive dimensions, measuring 70 meters in length with a displacement of 1,322 tons. For over 10 years, the vessel faithfully served its owners, reliably delivering large cargoes. But in 1931, its luck ran out. On June 6th, the ship once again set off for Alaska to collect a cargo of furs. Near Cape Barrow, the captain managed to avoid colliding with drifting ice. However, on the return journey, the ship got caught in an ice trap. Therefore, the captain and crew decided to temporarily abandon the ship. When the weather improved, the captain returned to the spot where the Bakimo should have been, but it was not there. Later, the ship was discovered 50 kilometers from Cape Barrow. However, it turned out to be unfit for further sailing. The crew then finally abandoned the ship. But its story did not end there. Usually, ships caught in such situations eventually sink. But the Bakimo was an exception. This vessel was seen for several more years, drifting near Cape Barrow. When we talk about cities, we imagine many houses, parks, shops, and so on. But it turns out, in Alaska, there is a city where there is only one 14-story building, and all the townspeople live in it under one roof. This city is called Whittier. Whittier is located in northwest Alaska. Among mountain peaks, glaciers, waterfalls, and dense forests, the city's history began during World War II. At that time, an American military camp was built here, including a port and a railway station. Later, in 1953, a 14-story residential building with 150 apartments was built. At the same time, a school was built, connected to the house by a tunnel. This solution allowed children to safely go to classes during bad weather. That same year, another large building was built, but it was abandoned over time. Now the population of Whittier is 220 people. They all live in one building. The city also has a hospital, cafe, and store. The local port is sometimes visited by tourist liners, but usually it is very quiet and calm here, and each resident knows each other. Of course, living in the harsh conditions of the state is very difficult. In 1964, Whittier suffered greatly after a serious tsunami. Then 13 people died from the disaster. But despite this, the locals do not want to leave this city. The small Sheldon Chalet is known as the most remote hotel in the world. It is located on the Ruth Glacier in Denali National Park at an altitude of 1767 meters above sea level. It is only accessible by helicopter. The hotel's story began in the 1960s. Pilot Don Sheldon made a living by delivering climbers and hunters to the snowy mountains by plane. Despite the risks, he loved being in these places and admiring nature. His passion for the mountains was supported by his wife Roberta. In 1966, they decided to build their home on the Ruth Glacier. Originally, Sheldon built the house for his family, but his children decided to turn it into a hotel. Construction took place over 3 years, from 2015 to 2018. Despite difficulties with the delivery of building materials, Sheldon's children managed to open a stunning resort location. Staying at the chalet is an expensive pleasure. A 3-day stay at the hotel will cost $35,000, but this amount includes helicopter transfer, a personal chef, as well as tours and entertainment, such as dog sledding. But perhaps the most important thing that Sheldon Chalet visitors can enjoy is the beauty of the landscapes, the northern lights, the endless starry sky, and the purest frosty air. In 2021, a group of Scottish researchers studying the effects of climate change near the town of Coldfoot accidentally noticed a strange object in one of the rocks and decided to extract it. It turned out to be a giant tusk of a woolly mammoth. Naturally, this stunning find was sent to the laboratory for further study. The analysis of stable strontium isotopes in the tusk showed that it lived in Alaska about 17,000 years ago. The mammoth lived for 28 years, and during its life, it traveled about 80,000 kilometers, changing at least 4 habitats. In its youth, the mammoth probably moved as part of a herd, but after the age of 16, it embarked on a solitary journey, covering great distances. In the last year of its life, it lived in the northern part of Alaska. The animal's death was due to starvation at the foot of the Brooks Range. This discovery allowed scientists to obtain valuable data on the life of another individual. Although archaeologists often find mammoth remains in North America, each one provides more understanding of how these ancient animals lived. Urayuli, or hairy man, belongs to the mythical creatures that dwell in dense forests. According to the indigenous people, this creature stands between 2 to 3 meters tall. The cryptid walks on 2 legs, just like a regular person. Its body is covered with thick, dark fur that protects it from the severe cold. Urayuli has a long neck, red glowing eyes, and lanky arms that dangle down to its ankles. These beings prefer to live in the tundra. Locals also tell stories of hearing a terrible howl, signaling that one of the Urayuli is hungry and on the hunt. At such times, people try not to go into the forest. Of course, stories of the monster resemble a fairy tale, but there are eyewitness accounts of people who have managed to see this creature. The last encounter of a person with Urayuli occurred in 1999. Who knows? Perhaps this monster was indeed an unknown species of animal, and the fact that it has not been seen for a long time may indicate the extinction of this species. The world ocean is a treasure trove of the most amazing finds. Scientists regularly discover new amazing species of underwater inhabitants. Looking at some of them, it's hard to believe that they really exist. One such unusual animal was discovered quite recently. On July 15, 2023, during an underwater expedition to explore the Pacific Ocean at a depth of 700 meters, the research vessel Okeanos Explorer discovered an unusual squid. Scientists published a video of this squid on the YouTube channel of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The video shows that the squid is almost completely transparent. The tentacles on its head are gathered into a sort of crest, making it resemble a Kakatu parrot. The squid also has huge red eyes, reminiscent of the eyes of some sea monster. This amazing species was named Taonius borealis. To date, it is known that the length of these squids' mantles reaches 60 centimeters. They cannot move independently in water, so they calmly swim wherever the current carries them. So far, there is almost no information about this species. Scientists are now continuing their research near the Aleutian Islands to study the Kakatu squids in more detail. Satellite images of Alaska have stirred the scientific community. This state is known for its icy landscapes and snow-capped mountains. However, this photograph challenges that fact. It shows a green area among the mountains. But how is this possible if it's surrounded by permafrost on all sides? Scientists are at a loss. They only say that this area is still unexplored. It's likely that archaeologists will soon venture into this inaccessible place, and we will learn more about this anomaly. It's not impossible that researchers might find artifacts on this green land pointing to the existence of an unstudied ancient civilization. The village of Kivalina is located on a small barrier island, surrounded by water on all sides. On one side, its shore is washed by the Chukchi Sea, and on the other side is a lagoon into which the Kivalina and Ulik rivers flow. The village has a population of 400 people. These people are accustomed to the quiet, measured life of islanders, engaging in hunting and fishing, but unfortunately, they will soon have to leave their homes forever. Global warming causes glaciers to melt. As a result, seas and rivers become wider and deeper, gradually submerging the land underwater. This problem has affected the village of Kivalina. Due to rising sea levels and coastal erosion, the island is slowly disappearing. According to scientists' estimates, this place will be completely underwater by 2025. Undoubtedly, no one and nothing can cope with natural phenomena, so stopping the disappearance of Kivalina is impossible. On August 11, 1775, the captain of the Greenland whaling ship Herald noticed another approaching ship. Judging by the movement of the vessel, the crew of the Herald thought it was unmanned. Therefore, they decided to approach it in a small boat for reconnaissance. Once on board the unknown ship, the sailors realized they were right. There was no one on deck. They then decided to go down to the cabins and stumbled upon a gruesome scene: 28 frozen dead people. In the captain's cabin, the sailors saw him sitting at the table with his head thrown back, a woman lying next to him embracing a child covered with a blanket. In the adjacent cabin, the sailors again saw a dead person. Judging by the traces of charred books, he had tried to start a fire. There, too, was the body of a boy clutching a rag doll in his arms. The sailors were shocked by what they saw and puzzled about what had happened to these people. It seemed as if an icy monster had attacked the poor souls and froze them in a second. The captain of the Herald decided to find out the cause of this tragedy at all costs. He found the ship's log, and what he read left him speechless. The log stated that the ship, named Octavius, had left China for England on September 10, 1762, 17 years ago. The last entry was dated November 11, 1762. It mentioned that the ship had got trapped in ice, they could no longer light a fire, and had lost all hope of being saved. After reading this, the captain of the Herald decided to quickly leave Octavius and return home to report the incident. Unfortunately, the tug sent to this location did not find the Octavius. It is believed that this ghost ship still drifts in the icy waters of the Arctic Ocean. The remains of ancient humans are important archaeological finds. With their help, anthropologists learn a lot about the life of our ancestors. One of the most valuable discoveries in Alaska were the remains of infants found in 2013 near the Tanana River. Analysis of the remains showed that the bones belonged to a newborn child and a 30-week-old embryo. The age of the remains is about 11.5 thousand years. The infants had one father, but different mothers. To determine the origin of the mothers, scientists from the University of Utah conducted an analysis using mitochondrial DNA isolation. The results made it clear that the mothers of the children belonged to different genetic groups of Native Americans. When discovering this find, archaeologists noticed that the remains of both children were covered with ochre. Scientists suggest that the presence of ochre on the bones indicates a burial ritual. The remains of ancient children allowed scientists to learn that even ancient people attached great importance to life and death and organized a burial ceremony for the deceased. A 3 centimeters long bone fragment was discovered east of Wrangel Island, located in the southeastern part of Alaska. It was initially assumed to be a bear bone. However, modern research of the artifact showed that this version was erroneous. The bone was stored in archaeological archives for a long time, but then ended up in the laboratory of the State University of New York in Buffalo. There, using genetic tests, scientists were able to establish that it actually belonged to a prehistoric woman who lived in this territory more than 3,000 years ago. Additionally, experts were able to determine that her ancestors were Tlingit and other North American ethnic groups. Scientists believe that the first settlers arrived on the continent from Siberia. Their migration was divided into 3 waves. The first wave occurred about 23,000 years ago when people discovered new lands, traveling across the Bering Land Bridge. The second wave about 6,000 years ago brought the Paleo-Inuit to this territory, and the Neo-Inuit came to this place already 2,000 years ago. Analysis of the woman's bones showed that she was a descendant of people who arrived in North America during the first wave. In 2015, archaeologists from the University of Alaska in Fairbanks conducted extensive excavations near the confluence of the Delta and Tanana rivers. During the research, they discovered the remains of small children. After that, they decided to continue the excavations, and not in vain. A little away from the burial site of the children's remains, archaeologists discovered the ruins of an ancient settlement. In this place, animal remains and primitive tools were found. But the most astonishing discovery was pendants, which scientists consider to be among the oldest jewelry. They are about 12,300 years old. The artifacts were made from animal bones. They are small pendants in the shape of truncated cones with barely noticeable striations along the edges. Neat holes were made at the narrow end of each pendant so that its owner could wear the decoration around their neck. A total of 2 pairs of such items were found. Ben Potter, an archaeologist from the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, believes that with such jewelry, ancient people marked their affiliation with a certain group. Possibly, they belonged to the tribe's chief hunters. Global warming has caused serious damage to the Bering Sea coast in far western Alaska. Scottish archaeologists from the University of Aberdeen are now trying to save the ruins of the ancient Yupik village, which had been under ice for several hundred years. This settlement was founded about 700 years ago. It had small sod houses for women and children, and in the center there was a large winter house for men. Men and women with children lived separately from each other, according to the traditions of the people. Undoubtedly, the ruins of the settlement contained many artifacts that would have helped scientists learn more about the village's inhabitants. But after the melting of the glaciers, the ruins gradually began to sink into the sea. For this reason, archaeologists are now intensively excavating this site, trying to save at least some of the artifacts. Alaskan wood frogs are some of the most amazing inhabitants of North America. They have adapted so well to low air temperatures that the cold does not cause them any discomfort. Alaskan wood frogs live predominantly in shrub tundra. They are medium-sized frogs, with body lengths ranging from 3.5 to 7 centimeters. Amphibians are active both day and night, but only hunt in the dark. The superpower of these frogs is that they literally freeze themselves during severe colds. When this happens, the amphibian's heart almost stops and blood stops circulating. With the arrival of spring, the frogs come out of this state and return to normal life. But how do they manage this? Scientists have found that cryoprotectors are responsible for self-freezing without consequences. In frogs, these substances are glucose and urea. By releasing them in large amounts when frosts occur, amphibians enter their unusual state. The study of this species of frog has helped scientists understand how animals manage to survive in extreme conditions. Moreover, this knowledge opens up new paths in medicine. In 2010, archaeologists made a gruesome discovery that shocked all scientists in North America. In the eastern part of Alaska, near the Tanana River, a site of ancient humans was found, namely the ruins of a primitive dwelling and traces of a hearth. In this place, researchers discovered the cremated remains of a small child. After analyzing samples taken from the hearth, it became clear that the child was about 3 years old. The little one died about 11,500 years ago. At that time, America and Asia were still connected by land. Scientists also conducted a thorough investigation of the site of the ancient humans. It turned out that their dwelling was a primitive structure with a roof held up by posts. Along with the remains, in the former hearth, bones of river fish, birds, and small forest animals were found. This meant that the ancient settlers hunted and cooked food from their catch at this hearth. But after the death of the child, it turned into a burial place. Scientists were unable to determine why the child died, as the found 20% of the skeleton was insufficient for this. However, they found out that as soon as the child was cremated, people left their dwelling. This fact led to the assumption that the child fell ill, and the ancient settlers considered this place dangerous and left to look for another home. The discovery of the ancient settlement allowed scientists to adjust the known dates for the first settlement of Alaska's territory and learn that primitive people living 11.5 thousand years ago had already begun to lead a sedentary lifestyle. In 2021, residents of the village of Kivalina discovered strange orange slime washed up on the shores of the Chukchi Sea. This slime looked like thousands of bubbles of unknown origin. The news of this unusual phenomenon interested not only scientists, but also internet users. Among the hypotheses about the nature of its origin, there was even a version that the slime was created by extraterrestrial beings. To dispel people's doubts and find out what it was, experts from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, took samples of the slime. Initially, they assumed that the orange substance was millions of tiny crustacean eggs, but upon closer analysis, it became clear that the slime was a mass accumulation of fungal spores of the rust variety. However, despite the result obtained, scientists were unable to precisely identify the variety of this fungus. The fact is that the samples did not match any subspecies of this order of fungi. This unusual find became the key to the discovery of a new species of fungi. In September 2023, a video with a strange object found at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean was published on the YouTube channel of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It appeared to be an unusual shiny substance resembling an egg, with a hole on one side of the sphere. Scientists speculated that an unknown living creature might have used it to either leave the egg or enter inside. To study the find more closely, researchers used a modern deep-sea robot. With its help, they were able to carefully extract the object and deliver it to the research vessel. In the first moments after the golden egg was handed over to the scientists, they were bewildered, as they had never seen anything like it before. Laboratory analysis also indicated that the researchers had found something previously unstudied. Scientists speculated that this golden object could be the eggshell of a worm or a fragment of a dead sponge. Either way, this creature is deep sea and will be difficult to find, as the egg was attached to rocks at a depth of 3 kilometers. During excavations on the northern coast of Alaska, archaeologists discovered the giant skull of a polar bear. Interestingly, the Inuit Eskimos have legends about a very large polar bear, the body length of which can reach 3.5 meters. According to the legend, this predator differs from ordinary bears not only in size, its distinguishing feature is an elongated skull and elongated body. The Inuit even gave it the name ermine bear. Additionally, the similarity to members of the weasel family is also given by the fact that this bear, like an ermine, is unable to quickly turn its head back. The Inuit say that this gigantic animal is very rare and perhaps already extinct. The last time hunters encountered it was in the early 1980s. Imagine how surprised the scientists were after discovering a large elongated skull. This suggested that the huge bear was not a fictional character from Inuit legends and existed in reality. Whether this rare species still exists or whether all its representatives have died out remains unknown. It's hard to find someone who hasn't heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but a much more dangerous place is the Alaska Triangle, stretching from Juneau to Anchorage and north to the city of Barrow. In this place, among thousands of lakes, mountains, and wastelands, more people have disappeared than anywhere else in the world. In this video, I will give examples of just some of the most high-profile disappearance cases. The first recorded case of the Alaskan anomaly is considered to be the disappearance of a plane in 1950. The aircraft was flying from Alaska to Texas. There were 44 people on board. As soon as the plane entered the Triangle Zone, it disappeared. Neither wreckage nor any other traces of the crash were ever found. The second case of a plane's disappearance frightened literally the whole world. On October 16, 1972, an aircraft disappeared without a trace on its way from Anchorage to Juneau. On board were U.S. Congressman from the Democratic Party Thomas Hale Boggs and politician Nick Begich. 40 search planes were sent to look for the wreckage. The search continued for more than a month, but nothing was found. You might think that the harsh Alaskan weather conditions are to blame, but to date, more than 16,000 cases of people's disappearances have been recorded. And that, you must agree, is a serious number. The indigenous Tlingit people believe that the evil spirit Kushtaka is to blame. Scientists still cannot understand the nature of this anomaly. That's all from me. If you liked this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Goodbye. See you soon.